Have you ever told your mind, stop thinking about it, and somehow you started thinking about it even more than before? You try to push the thought away, but it keeps coming back, stronger, louder, more persistent. If that feels familiar, you're not losing control of your mind. You're running into something psychologists call the white bear problem. Here's a quick experiment. For the next few seconds, try not to think about a white bear. Not a polar bear, not a cartoon bear, not even the word bear. Just keep your mind completely clear of it. What happened? For most people, the white bear shows up almost immediately, and the harder you try to suppress it, the more stubborn it becomes. This effect was carefully studied by psychologist Daniel Wegner. In his experiments, people were told not to think about a white bear and then asked to say whenever it popped into their mind. He discovered something surprising. When we try to force a thought out of our mind, the brain actually becomes more sensitive to it, almost like setting up an internal surveillance system. Your mind starts quietly asking, am I thinking about it now? Is it back yet? Did it return? And that constant checking keeps the thought alive. Under the surface, two parts of your mind switch on. One part tries to push the thought away, the other part watches for it, making sure it's really gone. But here's the problem. That monitoring part has to keep the thought in awareness in order to check whether it's there, which means the very act of suppression keeps the thought circulating. The more you try to control it, the more the system needs to look for it. This is why unwanted thoughts often feel strongest. When you're tired, stressed, or trying to fall asleep, because suppression takes mental energy. When your cognitive resources drop, the push it away system weakens, but the monitoring system keeps running in the background, so the thought slips through again and again and again, not because the thought got more serious, but because your grip simply got tired. This doesn't just happen with random images, it shows up everywhere. Trying not to worry before an important meeting, trying not to think about a mistake you made, trying not to replay an awkward conversation, trying not to feel anxious. The pattern is always the same. The tighter the mental grip, the stronger the rebound. A helpful way to understand this is to imagine holding a beach ball underwater. Maybe you've done this in a pool. At first, it stays down, but the whole time, pressure is building underneath your hands. And the moment your grip weakens, the ball doesn't gently float up, it surges back to the surface. Thought suppression works the same way. The push creates pressure, and pressure creates rebound. The more effort you use to hold it down, the more dramatic it feels when it pops back up. Here's the paradox most people never hear. The mind is not designed to obey the command. Don't think about this. In fact, the more emotionally charged the thought is, the more tightly the monitoring system locks onto it. Your brain isn't malfunctioning, it's actually trying to help by keeping an eye on what it believes might be a threat, just in a very unhelpful way. So if force makes thoughts stronger, what works better? Research points to something surprisingly simple, not suppression, not fighting, but allowing the thought to pass through without turning it into a battle. In practice, that can look like noticing the thought, naming it. There's the white bear again. And then gently bringing your attention back to what you were doing or to the feeling of your breath without demanding that the thought disappears. When the brain no longer needs to monitor the threat, the loop begins to quiet on its own. Think of thoughts like clouds moving across the sky. If you try to grab one, you stay locked onto it. But if you let it drift, your attention naturally moves on. This shift from controller to observer reduces the pressure inside the system. And when pressure drops, intrusive thoughts lose fuel. Now, this doesn't mean unwanted thoughts disappear instantly. Minds don't work like light switches, they work more like momentum. At first, the white bear may still appear, But without the constant push against it, the visits usually become shorter, quieter, and less sticky over time. You're not forcing the mind to be silent, you're giving it less to fight with. So the next time a thought won't leave you alone, notice the instinct to push it away. That instinct is human, it's understandable, but it may be exactly what's keeping the loop alive. Instead of tightening the grip, try loosening it. Not because the thought is welcome, but because your mind settles faster when it isn't being forced. The white bear problem reveals something important about the human mind. Control is not always the same thing as calm. Sometimes the systems that feel most intrusive are actually being amplified by resistance itself. Seeing that pattern is often the first real step toward quieting it. If this helped you understand your mind a little more clearly, you're not alone and you're not broken. You're human. And once you can see the loop, you can start to step outside it. When you try to stop thinking, your mind doesn't become quiet, it becomes more focused on the very thing you're trying to avoid. And that's because your thoughts don't control your mind, your attention does.